wasn't Senator Akpabio asked to step down for the moment that they were going to do that session? Why was he sitting? How do you come? You're the person who is being accused of something, and then you judge on your own matter. In what world does that sound okay? Even if the senators didn't have the courage to ask him to step down, didn't Senator Akpabio have the integrity to excuse himself?
There is no due process. In fact, due process has been murdered by a cult of misogynist senators, and it's sad. It's a sad day for our democracy. So nobody should talk about due process.
Confirm, ladies and gentlemen, serious reactions are still piling up on the suspension of Natasha from the National Assembly. And just like the video I posted yesterday, where Rufai Hussaini said that democracy of this country went on suspension, or should I say on vacation, on the day this incident happened. And you just hear another person saying that there is nothing like due processes. And Aisha Yusuf is saying, why should the Senate president be the one that is written out suspension note on a case that is being accused of? And this has been the basis of people reacting to this particular matter. And they are saying that, why should someone be a judge in his own case? And because of all these things, people are now looking at our National Assembly with one kind bombastic side eyes. But there is another thing I want us to look at. Now, do you think that it's proper for senators to suspend another senator elected from a constituency the same way they were elected, give him or her up to 6 months suspension, and not just ordinary suspension, withdraw her salary, security, and every other thing involved? Not just 1 week suspension, 1 month, but up to 6 months. Now, that particular constituency will not have any representative for up to 6 months. Come on, man. What do you think? But anyway, sir, let me allow you to listen to another heated argument on this particular matter. But as you are listening to it, be clicking on that share button and also subscribe in case if you have never done so for more update. And after that, I'll be back. Let's go there.
Frank, good to see you. Well, you heard from the senator here that due process has been followed, but from where you stand, do you think, based on your observation, that due process indeed has been followed in this case?
No. And there is no due process. In fact, due process has been murdered by a cult of misogynist senators, and it's sad. It's a sad day for our democracy. So nobody should talk about due process. Let me tell you, because we are dealing with issues of fair hearing here. You cannot, and again, it's illegal by our laws, and I'm talking about Article 13 of the African Charter of Human and People's Rights Ratification and Enforcement Act. Is a Nigerian law which says that you cannot actually, every Nigerian has a right to participate either directly or indirectly in the government or governance of his country. So you cannot even you cannot contemplate suspending a senator or a House of Assembly member. We talk about the idea that Senate is bound by its rules, and that whatever happens in the Senate cannot be inquired into by the courts. That's a joke. Doesn't mean that if someone picks a gun and shoots another senator right there in the Senate, and then the courts or the police will keep quiet about it, they will arrest that person and they'll prosecute the person. It doesn't matter what the Senate president thinks. I think we just witnessed a situation where we have seen a deliberate attempt to repress, suppress, and oppress a Nigerian woman. And it is not really Natasha Akpabio that is the victim here. It is the Nigerian, because if a Nigerian senator can be dealt with so harshly, so mercilessly, because she attempted to express herself, just imagine what will happen to the ordinary Nigerian. And what did the woman do? If the woman resisted, the change of her seat, if it matters so much, you could have also said, if it didn't matter that she needed to just change her seat, you could have also considered that it didn't matter if she remained in her seat. But you see, there's a mixture of murdering the principles of fair hearing here, whether it is the principle of nemo judesin causa sua, or the principle of fair hearing in the sense that you must fully hear the other side. I think we just seen a Nigerian woman a Nigerian senator being totally stripped of her Section 36 rights, her rights to fair hearing. And it's a very dark day, because I watched the international media before coming here, and they are making a real, music out of this, whether it's the ABC network or the BBC.
For want of time, let me ask you, because the senator did say that she was given an opportunity to present herself before the Ethics Committee yesterday. Reports from National Assembly reporters have it that they sat and waited for an hour thereabout. She didn't present herself, although she was in plenary when it was announced. That's on the one hand. When you say she wasn't given fair hearing, I want you to react to that. Hold on, Frank Chete. And the other leg of my question is, given the fact that the Kogi Central people have now been denied representation for 6 months, do they, as a people, can they really challenge this suspension as a violation of their constitutional right to representation?
That's why it looks as if we have a group of tyrants in the Nigerian Senate. Just imagine that. You deprive
very strong words, though.
No.
Very strong words.
What are you talking about?
When you describe the senators as tyrants, that is a very strong word to use.
It looks as if
we
have a group of tyrants in the Nigerian Senate, and we practice a democracy, right? Now, our laws say that a people will be represented at every material time in the Senate. Are you a court who deprive the people who have gone to participate in an election to determine that this woman should represent them, and you sit together as a committee to not decide her right? And your committee is not impartial, your committee is not independent, and you deprive the whole people of that constituency in Kogi State of representation. What are you talking about? And you say you are a democracy, and then you are telling me about fair hearing? Let me tell you something. There are what we call hierarchy of laws in our country. The Constitution sits at the top, followed by laws made by the National Assembly, followed by laws made by the House of Assembly. Also, we have regulations by ministers and rules made by the Chief Judge or by the Senate. Rules are not meant to be laws that are so technical, that are so rigid. They are meant to assist the application of the law to attain justice. If somebody is not present, you give the person an opportunity to come. If the person makes a mistake, whether signing a petition when he ought not to sign, there is no law against it. There are provisions for regularization. Senior advocates and lawyers make such mistakes against the rules of court every time.
Let me just follow up there, because you didn't really answer that question. Frank, you haven't answered my question. My question really was, can the people of Kogi Central, her constituents, now challenge this suspension? Was my question.
Wait a minute. Why would you contemplate that you will create a problem that does not exist, and then you send the people of Kogi West on an errand to go and challenge a clear illegality? Are you not guided by law? See, we are doing everything possible to save our democracy, and the democracy that we practice is we must govern, we must subject ourselves to the legal process. If the African Charter of Human and People's Rights Ratification and Enforcement Act in Nigerian law says at every material time, a Nigerian, whether by himself or a representative, must participate in his government. How dare you suspend? Are you a court? Are you a tribunal? Just because you feel offended? Why are we turning our democracy upside down? A few days ago, a congressman was shouting down on President Trump. They didn't do the worst to him. They simply censured him and asked him to walk out. They didn't tell you that he was suspended.
Yeah, Frank, if I may come in,
let's practice it well.
We don't have all day. Now, there are some fundamental issues that may have led to all of this, and I'm wondering, number one, based on your observation so far, from the very first day of refusing to move from seat A to seat B, do you see exhibition of sufficient knowledge of the workings or the processes of the Senate on the part of Senator Natasha Akpabio? And when she says this justice will not be sustained, it will not stand, she remains defiant. And we're hearing from the Senate that if she apologizes, she will get some reprieve from the 6-month suspension. Your thoughts on this?
They are trying to browbeat intimidate and hold down a Nigerian citizen. Unfortunately, it's a woman. Just imagine that. Where did the rule say that apologize first before we will forgive you? And let me tell you, it is not really as a matter of course that anybody or everybody, any senator must master the entire rules. We have it as a saying as lawyers that God forbid that you should carry the entire laws in your head. And if a senator makes a mistake, it is a mistake, and that's why it's meant to be corrected and not should be used against her. And it happens, not all of them there understand the rules of the Senate. And every time when distinguished Senator Oitaina was there, he kept on lecturing them every now and then while he was in the Senate. How can they now latch on a simple mistake or a misnomer? And let me tell you, you see, you don't even need to understand the English language or speak it so correctly to be a senator or a representative, provided you are able to represent your people. Okay. So what are we turning this thing into?
All right.
She has done creditably well, and she is even more articulate, far more articulate than these persons who have put her on trial so unfairly. What kind of country?
We're almost out of time. The very last question, very briefly. You have used the word mistake 4 times in the course of this conversation. Mm-hmm. 1, do you admit that she has made mistakes? 2, if she has, what was an appropriate measure to take by the Senate if they say she did not even present herself for the ethics committee to hear her out?
Look, that woman, that respectable, distinguished senator of Nigeria did not make a mistake. I cited for as an example. Let me be honest with you. See, a person is entitled to reasonable perception. If her perception is that I am being discriminated against because I am this, I am that, because I didn't do this, because I was said to do that, she has every right to protest, especially in the floor of the Senate, and that's exactly what she did. And again, just the same way people plead the 5th Amendment rights, a senator, a Nigerian citizen, can decide not to show up, make whatever decision that you want to decide to make, and then it can also be challenged. What are we trying to? You see, we want to victimize the woman further and then traumatize her. And I tell you, you're not even making reference to the fact that there was a legitimate court order, as it was reported, that was served on them, and that they needed to respect the right of an individual Nigerian. It doesn't matter whether she's a woman or a senator, that whatever they are doing is capable of traumatizing and destroying the self-esteem of a Nigerian citizen, of a Nigerian woman. They didn't care. What group of people are these? Come on, they should get better advice.
Okay.
You know, as a nation, the fact that we're so invested in technicalities and all of that, sometimes certain things are done to challenge certain positions and certain rulings. Why is it that on a situation, I think what the Nigerians should be asking is that why is it that a petition that has to do with something where you feel aggrieved, that you're having to look for someone else to sign it for you? That's the conversation we should be having. Listening to your conversation earlier on, I heard where you talked about having to now jump back, and this is the reality of a lot of Nigerians. But we're okay with that. We move on. Just also to recap the fact that we're talking about this and as what women should be fighting for. This is not about women. This is about a nation. This is about us citizens. The fact that we almost seem to be enslaved in our own country. And there is a pattern. And I think what we need to focus on, we like to major in the minor as a people. Let's focus on the major issue. One is the fact that there is an allegation here, and in the course of all that, I call it a charade. And I think there was one of the presenters who took a word out of my, because I've written it, I was like, the Senate almost seems as if it's a court-like, MiFi-like institution, where anybody who speaks or goes against the institution is immediately suspended. But when they do wrong, they are never suspended. You've never heard of a senator or a National Assembly member being suspended because they did something wrong. It is always when they are either fighting for their rights or on the side of the people that they are always being suspended. Having said that, also is the fact that what should concern us, we should be majoring on right now. And I didn't hear that in the course of the conversation. Maybe when I was thrown off, the Zoom had problem, you guys had talked about it. why wasn't Senator Akpabio asked to step down for the moment that they were going to do that session? Why was he sitting? How do you come? You're the person who is being accused of something, and then you're also the judge on your own matter. In what world does that sound okay? Even if the senators didn't have the courage to ask him to step down, didn't Senator Akpabio have the integrity to excuse himself and say, because this matter, I am a party to this matter, I will not sit on this, I will come down. The thing also we also should be talking about, and I'll round up with this one, for us to focus on the major, not on whether she knows the rush, because if we begin to talk of senators who have done a whole lot that that have not gone with the rules, there are many out there. The thing we should also be asking, why would the Senate have the right to take away something the Constitution has given one? Because becoming a sin, why do they have a right to suspend you from your legislative duties? I understand that you've done something, there should be punishment, you can be suspended from being part of a committee or doing any the other things. But someone was voted by a constituency and they sent the person to the Senate. The Senate, the members of the Senate are not the ones that gave that power to that person, but they have a right to take it away, something that the Constitution has given. These are conversations we should be having. Thank you.
All right. I'm tempted to ask, just before I go to Mr. Onyekpere, if I gain anything from what you have said, is it okay to break institutional rules in the path to advocating for what is right?
It is not okay to break institutional rules. It is okay to challenge institutional rules. There are some of them that you need to bring to the fore. The reasons why rules get better is that there are some rules, when you look at them, they are not just, they are not either not ethical or they just don't make sense. And in challenging them, you get them to be changed. So let me give you an example, and I'm going to go back to the civil rights movement. When Rosa Parks refused to stand up, you understand, it was a rule that whenever you see a white person, there's no seat, you have to give up your seat. When she refused to stand up, that was challenging a rule that didn't make sense. And along the way, this is the conversation we should be having. So it's not, nothing is always written in black and white. Where in the world does it make sense? I have an issue, I have a problem, something has been done against me, and then I need someone else to write a petition on my behalf. I think lawyers call something busybodies when you go and carry something that it's not on your behalf. It doesn't make sense. So certain rules should be challenged, and in challenging them, yes, you do it and say, let's talk about these rules. So not to talk about the technicalities of, oh, whether she understands what she's doing. She was called someone that came in a Supreme Court senator, so she doesn't know this, she doesn't know that. Half of the, in short, 99.9% of the people at the Senate, what do they really know?
All right. I'll take the same question to Mr. Onyekpere. What are your thoughts on Senator Akpabio's handling of her case of allegations of sexual harassment against the Senate President? And what are the lessons for her?
The questions you are asking to me, and what so many senators we are talking about on radio and television, is the sheer pedestrianization of a very, very serious national issue. They left the substance of the matter and went into abstruse, nonsensical, like that, say, formalism. How can the Senate display so much impunity writ large? A matter had been taken to court, and the court had given an interim order, gave a return date, and they thought in their own wisdom that they have a right to override the constitutional right of a citizen, of a senator, to go to court to present the matter wherever he feels that his civil rights and obligations have been violated. So what the Senate had done is unconstitutional, is illegal, and the whole way the matter was presented, pedestrianized and discussed, is just the usual old boys club, where they found somebody who they can now think is a stranger. Therefore, he or she must be dealt with to teach him or her a lesson. So asking about Senator Natasha's knowledge of the rules is neither here nor there. That's not the point. Somebody has alleged that somebody sexually assaulted her, okay? So if that is the case, that is a very weighty matter that does not require the man just sitting down there and laughing and presiding over his own case. Are we primitive? Are we not civilized enough? I am outraged at what has happened, because if we continue going this way, the world is not waiting for us. Sooner than later, already nobody takes us seriously. We are going to be marked as a nation of people who don't use their common sense. So it has nothing to do with our knowledge. It has everything to do with the character and lack of integrity of those who operate in the system and simply want to drown the voice of somebody who raises a dissenting opinion. It is not proper, it is illegal, and it is unconstitutional. Finally, how can you suspend somebody elected to represent a zone for 6 months? Even under their rules and what the courts have said, the highest you could suspend such a fellow is about 2 weeks or thereabout. So who will be speaking on behalf of that zone for the 60 days? Withholding salaries and all this. You could see the punitive backward mentality in how they announced with glee their punishment. Those in favor say aye, those against say it's ridiculous, extremely ridiculous.
All right. Well, Mr. Akpabio, we would appreciate if you just go straight to the question without, denigrating the person of my colleague or the question. I think that left a very bad taste. We can ask the questions based on what the people think, and we appreciate if you answer, without seeming to denigrate our person or the questions being asked. But I want us to move forward in the sense that I think both of you have agreed that there needs to be something done about the standing order, the rule book of the Senate, in that it doesn't allow or provide that channel to allow people who have been aggrieved to really seek redress in that sense. So you have to be a part of that cult in that sense, which means that if you go against it, you might not get redress. You always have to align in that sense. And I want both of you to speak to it. So where do we move on from here? Because it looks like everybody agrees that something needs to be done. But who is going to bail the cat? And I'll begin with Mrs. Yusuf, then come to you, Mr. Akpabio.
How do we move on from here is to take issues seriously. When he talked about, he wasn't denigrating you. He was just talking about the seriousness of this issue. I didn't say it in the studio. It's not about being denigrating. Our lives as a people, our lives has turned to nothing. We are suffering in our country, and it comes from here. And every day we get mockery from the people. And when we come to media, we're expecting the seriousness of the issue to be taken on. And there's laughter. And so that's it. The questions were more focused on, what Senator Natasha has done. No, that's not it. The question should be on, why do we have this? Someone has come out to talk about sexual allegations.
Well, Mrs.
And we live in a country where people are not protected.
I didn't sense any laughter. I'm not sure if you can see me, but there's no laughter on my face. So I'm not sure where you got the laughter from, Mr. Yusuf.
I'm the one. I'm giving you feedback on what I felt from what you said. You guys,
you said there was laughter on my face, and I'm putting it to you that there was no laughter on my face.
You can ask other viewers, and so this is the thing. Let's talk about these things and seriously with the seriousness that is required.
Mrs. Yusuf, I need you to acknowledge. I need you to acknowledge that there was no laughter on my face when I asked you the question. So you said there was laughter on my face.
I think so. When you asked, I said when the conversation was going on.
Which of the conversations?
I joined this program before 7. I came on before 7, so I've stayed here for quite a bit, and that's what I'm talking about. And I'm saying right now, we have a Senate where a travesty has just gone on, and as a nation, we're almost like moving it. It's almost like a joke. And so it is not the joke. So I'm saying he's not denigrating you. I'm giving you feedback. If you want us to do the back and forth here, if I need to continue with the question, I would gladly.
No, there's no back and forth here. I just need to put things in proper perspective so people watching will understand what this is about. We're asking you questions. How do we move forward? And that's what the question is.
Yeah,
I really don't understand the backtracking, and I think this is what will really mess up the conversation if we're not able to tackle the issues as they are. How do we fix the issues in the Senate, in the institutions? Those are the questions, Mrs. Yusuf.
The question, before you ask the question, you talked about that your colleague was denigrated. And I needed to give you context that they weren't denigrated. it was a question that was raised when he said that.
And she didn't smile. She didn't smile when she asked the question. You realize that there was no smile on her face.
Back and forth instead of focusing on the issue.
Exactly.
Right
so
now.
please answer the question.
In the course of the conversation, we're doing a back and forth. If you would like, allow me to give you.
No, facts just have to be laid on the table, so nothing is misconstrued. That's all.
Exactly the same reason why I needed to give you that. It's not the smile. I said the room, the way it was, as if the seriousness of what we've just witnessed. It's not even here, talk less of on the street as we go on. And I need us to understand, this is a major issue. How do we go on from there? We need to understand there's a pattern. And there was something that was raised earlier on, because remember, there are always remote causes. I told you I've been here 6 before 7. I joined and I've been listening. We heard when former Senator Shehu Sani talked about the fact that he almost got a suspension when he decided to reveal how much they were earning at the Senate. We've seen Senator Ninki, who got a suspension because of the fact that he came out to say that the budget was padded. We've seen other lawmakers who have. And this is it. We need to understand that there is a pattern. Whenever anybody speaks for Nigeria, stands for Nigeria, or they're fighting for their right, they are being suspended. How do we prevent this? It's for Nigeria to understand that this is not just about the senators that are out there. This is about every one of us. Are we standing to defend these senators? Are we standing to speak on their behalf? Are we standing to say enough is enough? The Senate should not do this. That is the way. It's a message we have to stand. Otherwise, we have a court-like, mafia-like institution that punishes anybody that goes against its own rules. Let me give you another example. The other thing, we saw the IG of police coming in to present a budget and bringing in something different from what had been given to the other senators. When one of the senators raised that, it was his own colleagues, other senators, that came after him. If we continue to look at those things and we do nothing, then we continue to do it. It is time for Nigerians to stand and call every one of them to order. It might be difficult. Do we need to start a recalling process? Yes, it might look impossible, but just taking on the issue and say, oh, it is what it is, and asking questions on based on, oh, what rule was broken, what rule was not broken, it's not going to get us anywhere. So we need to understand that this happenings, there's a pattern to it, and it is affecting us, it is affecting the quality of governance in our country.
Mr. Ekwere, let's come to you on this particular issue, and I'd like us to stay on the merit of the conversation. What triggered this was just not adhering to rules. We can't throw that out of the window. Even as at yesterday, she was still sitting down when the Senate president was walking in. They have their rules, they have their rules. So my question is, where do we draw the line between protecting institution and allowing people to have their freedom of expression at the end of the day when there's a conflict between both? You've raised a question that what they did yesterday was in breach of section, I think, 4(8) of the Constitution, and you raised all of these legalese around it. So between protecting institution, which we clearly saw that they dwelt on it yesterday, on that premise they suspended her, and she making a valid, serious allegation that border on civil and criminal nature against the Senate president, and it was thrown out initially because they say it's a subject of adjudication. She said, no, I never filed such shit. Where do we balance? Because that is a core conversation. Just as Mrs. Yusuf has said, something that happened to Mr. Shehu Sani as he tweeted.
Well, let me start by saying that I never sought to denigrate the person or integrity of the interviewer. I was talking about the sheer pedestrianization by the Nigerian Senate of a very serious issue. You see, the way you frame a question will determine the answer you get. The weight of the allegation of sexual harassment, what I'm saying, is far heavier and bigger than simply bringing a petition signed by you when you are the victim, not knowing that somebody else should have petitioned on your behalf. And that's why I use the word pedestrianization. Now, which institution are you protecting? In protecting an institution, you don't validate or ventilate illegality. In protecting an institution, it is not about protecting the present occupant of the seat. It is about the rules, constitutionalism, I would have loved to hear you question about why a matter that went to court, why being sub judice, while a valid order of court had been given, was simply overridden. And they said, go to hell, we don't want to wait for the court order. Is it not part of the reasons that the Supreme Court in the Rivers State case decided, because there was a court order which they said the state government did not obey? Why is this different? Why are we asking questions about protecting a system? If a system is bad, it needs to be thrown overboard. If a law doesn't make sense, nobody is bound to obey it. The days are gone when we will be blackmailed. I was an active citizen during the days of military dictatorship. We fought against the rules, which we saw were violative of our personhood, our dignity of the human person. So we were not bound by under any jurisprudential disposition to obey a law which simply denigrates our personhood. So what I'm saying in essence is that if a rule is antithetical to common sense, it's got to be thrown overboard. And there is no question of protecting an occupant of a seat. Rather, we should protect the institution. And grave allegations should not be swept under the carpet, under any guise. Because this is not the first time, like Aisha Yusuf said, and this is not going to be the last. If we can't stand up to the system because we simply want to protect an occupant of a seat, then that's too bad.
Okay, let me bring it to Ms. Aisha Yusuf on this one. Same question, because sometimes I think the argument is, but the perception borders around person against institution and all of that. But you raise a very valid point as to the rules. And my interest, especially I'm happy you're a woman, is the public perception that the hallowed chamber is not safe for women. That perception, whether it's right or wrong, is a question of debate. But if we say that, given that we just have 4 women and 105 men, if I flip the page, maybe something different can happen. How do we ensure that we insist as a people that the issues of sexual harassment allegations, for an example, is not tolerated, and there should be a clear-cut rule in the National Assembly as to how to handle it so that women will be further protected? Just let's begin from there first.
So the thing is this: women are not protected in Nigeria, and literally every woman in Nigeria that you see lives with PTDS, and we are always on the edge. Right now, what you see is the fact that we have a lot of sexual allegations around. We have a lot of victims. Now we have a distinguished senator whose voice has been shut down when she has come out to cry, who is actually being shamed both by her colleagues and also some members of the public. So you imagine if a senator does not have the safe space for her to dare to speak out, what then about other women and what they're going through? I think the first thing that we need to see that leads to a place whereby people will begin to think that, oh no, sexual harassment will not be tolerated in Nigeria. We needed to have a place where they will say, even when the Senate president was accused of sexual harassment, you could see something was done. The first thing that needed to be done would have been to say to Senator Akpabio, step down. Step down, let this issue be investigated. Let there be transparent investigation. Let there be independent investigation. Let there be a public hearing on this. Let the matter be taken. Let's see what the facts are. But what we see now is that they're shutting down the voices, putting the whole case, pushing it under the table. And this sends a very strong message to perpetrators that, it's a place where you can do whatever you want to do and nothing is going to come out of it. If, for example, the senator is saying this, how many other persons at the National Assembly are being sexually harassed and now they can't speak? Now they've been told if they dare to do anything, this is going to happen. How many other women or sometimes even men, because sexual harassment goes either way. It's a matter of power. People who feel they're in power, they can do and undo. How many other victims do we have all across Nigeria who are going through this? So that's why for me, when we make this issue about some following rule and not following rule. That's not the crux
Indeed,
of the matter.
that's something to consider.
That there's a sexual harassment allegation against the Senate president.
Indeed.
And there was no need for him to sit and judge on a matter that concerned him in the manner that they did, the charade we saw yesterday.
Indeed, you're right on the money, Mrs. Yusuf. That's something to consider, the possibility that many more are going through this, and because of fear of persecution, they're unable to speak up. But I'm glad you talked about having joined in on the program before 7, and you heard much of the conversation. But if you did, then you would have also noted that we covered much of the ground, talking about the relativism of sexual harassment, why some of her colleagues did not sign the petition on her behalf. And indeed, the question you asked earlier about whether or not we asked if the Senate president should recuse himself, that was also covered by my colleague Jeffrey. And I, in fact, also asked, why she didn't get the measure of support required from her female colleagues. So we are Channels Television. We're objective, we're unbiased. We cannot, queue up beside the senator who has made the allegation alone. We have to cover all sides to the story. So I apologize if we did not, put out much of the sentiments that you would rather have heard. So let me proceed with this now, and I'll appreciate if you can answer
add a bit of an addendum.
60 seconds.
You remember I said at one time the Zoom, I was out of the Zoom. I noted that. So I saw you covered quite a lot, and I did mention when I was speaking that at one time, the Zoom had a glitch, so they had to take us out. We rejoined, and I mentioned that. So there were things that you said. Of course, you did talk about the things around the area, but what has to be said has to be said.
It's just important.
Yes, you guys.
It's important to put it out there that we haven't trivialized the issue.
I did, and I said I wasn't there. I had to go out because of the Zoom distance.
All right. So here's.
I've heard you.
Here's the final poser there. We didn't see, we in fact saw a male senator pleading for leniency for Senator Natasha. And I'm wondering why the female senators, 4 of them, none of the female senators stood up for her by any measure. So what does this say really about that commentary that women time and again try to, reduce the impact of, which is why perhaps whether women do not support each other?
If I may come in here, I think that the opposition may not be supportive of such sweeping generalization. It may be for some personal interest, because some of us felt, somehow we are taken aback when we saw a particular female senator who had even been abused by the same system, who had in the past complained, lining up to say she was using it as an opportunity to get back in the favor of the books of those who run the system. So the fact that none of them spoke up against what was happening is not just evidence that women fight themselves. It's maybe evidence that they are also afraid of being blacklisted, or being threatened, or even being denied their rights if they are seen to be supportive of this one who more or less has gone against the system. So that is my perspective of that. Let's not use that fact to make a sweeping generalization. The system has a big hammer in its hands, and anybody who seems to support may not be hammered immediately. They may be looking for opportunities to hammer that person in due course. And very few persons are interested in positioning themselves for hammering.
You get the point. Now, what do you think about these reactions, as more reactions are still piling up because of the way she was suspended, the length of the suspension, the mode of the suspension, and most especially the reason why Senate President was involved in her suspension, because he was the one that was accused in this matter. But nevertheless, let me allow you to share your thoughts with me on the comment section. And of course, you know the vibe now. Click on that subscribe button, follow, and share for more updates. Because like this,